Pan down from the twin suns of Tatooine. We are now close on the mouth of the Sarlacc pit. After a beat, the gloved Mandalorian armor gauntlet of Boba Fett grabs onto the sand outside the Sarlacc pit, and the feared bounty hunter pulls himself from the maw of the sand beast.
Boba Fett used to be one of the most mysterious and badass characters ever introduced into Star Wars. A fan-favorite character ever since his first appearance on the big screen back in 1980. There aren't many characters that are quite as profitable and marketable as Boba Fett. Giving Boba Fett a dedicated TV show sounds like such an easy way to make millions and millions of dollars for Disney, right? Well, it should have been, but season 1 of the highly anticipated show came and went, and let's just say, there was a lot left to be desired by fans. So here we are, 3 years later, new Star Wars shows come and go. Some are better than others. So today we're going to be taking a look back at what went wrong with the Book of Boba Fett, the show where everything started to go downhill for Star Wars. To really understand the Book of Boba Fett show, we have to take a look back at the retcon that was 40 years in the making, the revival of one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars history. Boba Fett made his long-awaited return in The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 6, titled Chapter 14, The Tragedy, where it is revealed that Boba Fett has been tracking Din Djarin in order to retrieve his lost armor, which had fallen into Mando's hands earlier in the season. And after donning the armor and beating the crap out of a squadron of stormtroopers, Boba agrees to help Din Djarin and his crew rescue Grogu from the grasps of the evil Empire. Boba even gets some killer scenes in the next 2 episodes, a badass armor redesign, a crazy meetup with the Night Owl straight out of every Clone Wars fanfiction, and the return of everyone's favorite seismic charge. Boba Fett was back, and he was better than ever. And then the finale of Mando Season 2 aired, not only giving us the best Star Wars content since Revenge of the Sith, but it also left us with a post-credit scene that gave Star Wars fans hope for the future of Star Wars. It's important to look at where Star Wars was as a whole at this moment in time. The Rise of Skywalker was released almost exactly a year before. This is following the box office flop that was Solo: A Star Wars Story and the outrage that The Last Jedi had caused fans. Many Star Wars fans were beyond disappointed with the end of the sequel trilogy and what Disney had done to such a beloved franchise. But regardless of Disney's rocky past with Star Wars releases, The Mandalorian was the show that Disney Plus launched its platform based on, and the show was bigger than anyone could have ever expected. Season 1 of the show was massive, and the release of Season 2 somehow exceeded everyone's astronomical expectations. So the tease of a Boba Fett dedicated show was the hope fans needed that Disney had finally moved on from their failure of the sequel trilogy. But despite all of this, the Book of Boba Fett would release and be met with lots of criticism from fans, landing only a 49% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. The Book of Boba Fett had some really amazing scenes in it, Boba riding the Rain Corps, teaming up with the Mandalorian for a final battle. Heck, Boba stealing back the Slave One to drop a seismic charge into the mouth of the Sarlacc in order to get his revenge is a scene that I could have never dreamed of. But despite some of these really high moments, the show had lots of lows too. The show was riddled with poor writing, poor plot decisions, and worst of all, a departure from the character of Boba Fett as we knew him. Boba Fett as a character is very interesting. We don't see much of him in the original trilogy, seeing the most screen time in Empire Strikes Back, but also getting enough screen time in Return of the Jedi to get a one-way trip into the belly of the Sarlacc. The OT finished leaving lots of mystery around the character. The prequels dive a lot deeper into his backstory, giving us an explanation of where Boba comes from, and the Clone Wars show dives deep into the effect the prequels had on a young Boba Fett. Obviously, we see Boba work with the evil Empire to deliver the frozen Han Solo into the clutches of Jabba the Hutt. But for the most part, we don't know much about who Boba is as a person, what drives and motivates him. What we do know is he hunts bounties for the highest bidder, even growing a reputation as one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, going to such extremes as to disintegrate his bounties. Even in the Clone Wars, when Boba was a kid, we saw Boba try to assassinate Mace Windu as revenge for killing his father. While much of Boba's character is left to mystery, nothing we see depicts Boba being a good person. Even when we see Boba make his long-awaited return in The Mandalorian, we do see Boba take allegiance with Mando, but he's not depicted as a good person for doing so. He orders Finnick to target Grogu as leverage to get Mando to give up his armor. He brutally murders a squadron of stormtroopers. He picks a fight with Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves, murders Bib Fortuna in order to take over what's left of Jabba's crime empire. But then when we see him in the Book of Boba Fett, he's a completely different character. The show gives us several long and in-depth flashbacks to explain what happened to Boba as he escapes the Sarlacc pit. It shows Boba was taken into a tribe of Tusken Raiders where he learned their code of honor and their family structure. This is the show's explanation from why Boba turned into a ruthless bounty hunter into a more of an honorable figure, in the search of peace. But the problem is, all of these Tusken Raider flashback scenes, they happen all before the events of The Mandalorian. So we see Boba learn to become a better person, completely ignore what he had learned during the events of The Mandalorian, and then go back to being a good person during the events of the Book of Boba Fett. It's almost like the character of Boba Fett in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett are two completely different characters. I have nothing wrong with Boba Fett being honorable. I actually think that's a great characteristic for him to have. It gives Boba a little humanity, while giving a great homage to how he was raised by Jango Fett. But there is a difference between him being good and him being honorable. Boba helps Din Djarin save Grogu because he is honorable, not because he's good. The Mandalorian Season 2 does a great job of showing Boba's honor, but half of the plot of the Book of Boba Fett is how Boba Fett is worried about saving the townspeople and the villagers from the Pike. Why does Boba Fett care about the townspeople? What he should be worried about is the Pikes taking over the city and impacting his crime empire, not about the safety of the townspeople. And that's a large reason why we see a departure of Boba Fett as a character. Poor plot decisions. The idea of the Book of Boba Fett sounds amazing on paper. Boba Fett takes over the remnants of Jabba the Hutt's crime empire on Tatooine, but has to deal with Cad Bane and the Pikes trying to take over in Jabba's absence. But the problem is that's not quite what we got. We expected to see the inner workings of the largest crime empire in the galaxy in action. But what we actually got was more of Boba Fett acting as a sheriff and detective. He is personally involved with trying to figure out who hired assassins to kill him, and uncover the corrupt actions of the mayor of Mos Espa. There is also a subplot where Boba Fett is called to help stop a gang of hipster mods from stealing water from a local moisture farmer. The writers of the show really had the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, and the new leader of a crime empire dealing with petty theft. It would have made a whole lot more sense for Boba to be the one stealing the water than stopping the crime. And don't even get me started about the mods. Another big problem I had with the show was Boba needing to assemble a team to fight the Pikes. Let's go over the team that Boba assembled to fight an entire crime empire. Fennec Shand, one of the most ruthless and highly trained assassins in the galaxy. Such an amazing choice. The Mandalorian, Din Djarin, another great choice. Chrysanthemum, a ruthless Wookiee mercenary. Another amazing choice. 2 Gamorrean guards. Okay. I mean, it makes sense that Boba would have some goons, just like Jabba had, but only 2 of them? The hipster mods. And the townspeople of Freetown. Yikes. It's no wonder everyone almost died. I understand that they're trying to assemble all the characters that were introduced earlier in the show, but Boba was really assembling the B team here. It's almost like they were playing galactic softball, and he got to pick his good picks first, like Mando and Chrysanthemum, and then he was forced to pick the unathletic kids because there was no one left. I seriously can't stress this enough, Boba Fett is one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, and you're telling me that his only connection is Din Djarin? He should have assembled the dream team of bounty hunters. Give me Bosk, give me Dengar, IG-88, Forlom and Zuckuss. All of these bounty hunters are barely seen in Empire Strikes Back, but are legendary when it comes to bounty hunters. And they are beloved by so many Star Wars fans. It would have been so cool to see these iconic characters return to the screen after nearly 40 years. Then of course, one of the biggest problems of the show was the Mandalorian episode. And you're probably typing out an angry comment right now saying, but Lukeness, the Mando episode was the best episode in the entire series. And you would be absolutely right. The best episode of the Book of Boba Fett is the episode that Boba Fett is not even in. And that's the problem. Din Djarin's story is so much more interesting to fans. He took an entire episode of Boba Fett's 7-episode series, and it was easily the best episode of the show. Grogu's appearance in the finale is one of my biggest problems for me as well, and that's because Grogu always has to come in and save the day. Grogu defeats one of the large murder robots, as well as using the Force to calm down the Rancor from its rampage through the town. And if this was an episode of The Mandalorian, I think it would be great for the story. Din Djarin is constantly protecting Grogu, and Grogu does the same by protecting Din Djarin. But this has a lot more to do with Boba Fett, and Boba Fett not being able to stand up for himself. Us as fans have built up Boba Fett so much in our minds, as well as in Star Wars Legends, and so we wanted to see how skilled of a fighter and bounty hunter Boba Fett is. But to see him have his butt bailed out by a baby rather than fighting his way out or figuring out a way to do it himself is just disrespectful to his character. Boba Fett has been my favorite Star Wars character ever since I saw Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and I feel like Lucasfilm has found a way to take one of the coolest and most mysterious characters in the entire Star Wars universe and make him uncool. And that just personally hurts my heart as a lifelong Star Wars fan. But regardless, I'd love to see Book of Boba Fett return for a second season. The end of the show kind of teased Boba handing the mantle of the leader of Mos Espa to Cobb Vanth, and I think that would be a great way to have Boba and Finnick take on more of a bounty hunter role in Season 2 that Boba Fett is known for and what we kind of expect from Boba Fett. If you like this video, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future uploads breaking down your favorite movies and TV shows. And we'll see you in the next one.